We are live, not literally, technically live, back with another episode of your wildest fantasy football show. How we doing?
We're thriving. We're surviving.
Excellent.
69.
I gotta be honest. So we just recorded AFC East for Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were live on Tuesday, recording Thursday episode, and then right after this, recording the Friday episode. Did a little change, try to keep it. I don't know. Try to freshen things up. I feel very uncomfortable wearing a new shirt after wearing another shirt for just an hour. Am I alone in that?
Yeah, I love wearing a new shirt. If I could change shirts every half hour on the half hour, I would.
So we're in different camps there.
Yeah, I mean, the confidence you feel when you put on a fresh new outfit is unmatched. I mean, when you get out the shower and you got a nice pair of clean clothes laying out for you, you're ready to conquer the day. All right, boss is bitching at you. Who cares? You got a cool outfit on. You're good to go. Car won't start. Who cares? You got a cool outfit on. You're good to go. Girlfriend's mad at you for not, putting the toilet seat down. Who cares? You're good to go with the new outfit on. It's a problem solver for everything.
And that's what I love about you, Cody. You have confidence, especially when you have a changed shirt, but you have confidence no matter what. It doesn't matter if that new shirt is a sweatshirt with the hood hanging down so it looks like a butt. You're fine.
Unmatched confidence.
Yep.
Confidence is key.
Kinney, how do you feel about the new outfits?
I mean, all this is very new to me. So I'm getting comfortable feeling uncomfortable. So
yeah,
let's
3 days in,
just kind of
an hour in. Perfect. And this is kind of your episode. We're talking about the AFC North today. You are a Steelers fan. I think we teased on Monday.
We did.
That you were going to tell us how you killed the Steelers' career of Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, before you get into it, I don't know how Steelers fans are going to react. I feel like you might get a mixed bag here. People who are upset with you for killing a man's career, and then people who are happy that Juju is no longer a Steeler.
Well, I think just first and foremost, I was not the only person there that night. However, the picture, Juju and I did get a picture that spiraled between, group chats, Snapchat.
I'm pretty sure it was actually in the Daily Mail's Snapchat. Also.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was big news.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I went to the week five game last year. My girlfriend and I, and that was Steeler Broncos, and we were out after dinner. Walking the streets. We stayed in the Camp de Monaco, which is right next to the William Penn.
Shout out there.
And that's significant because we didn't know at the time, but I guess the night before home games, all the players stay at the William Penn Hotel. So they have like the team dinner the night before. All the players like roll up in their nice cars. So it was about like 8:15. We were told that like their dinner starts at 8:30. So we're standing for about 10 minutes, and all the offensive players like were mostly there. Players get dropped off in like private vans, whatever, and everyone's like, "Oh, where's Juju? Where's Juju?" And we're about to cross the street, and my girlfriend goes first, and here comes Juju on one of those like electric scooters. Nearly takes her out. That would have been awesome, but not awesome, because probably would have become a season ticket holder or something.
We'll take that.
Anyways, long story short, she ran up, flagged me over. We got a picture. Game happens. What was it? The first quarter, I think. Juju goes shoulder into a Broncos, defender, and blew his shoulder out. And that was it.
Bob, your
Came
uncle.
back for the playoffs, didn't do anything. And then he he left and went to Kansas City. So it's I think it's safe to say that I was the catalyst for Juju's downfall.
Right.
And not proud of it, but everything happens in life for a reason. So
Amen. Kinney, do you think a future you came back to that moment in time and saved your girlfriend from getting hit by Juju? And if so, what would you tell future you?
I guess just kind of taken back by the question.
I
I
mean,
think that's understandable.
I
Yeah.
think if Juju,
I don't know that. So what you're saying is that
if Juju had hit his girlfriend, then Juju would have never broken his shoulder. He'd still be in Pittsburgh, and they'd have a Super Bowl ring right now.
I don't think we can guarantee that he wouldn't have broken his shoulder or hurt his shoulder if he hit her with a scooter. I think that could have also led to injury.
No. I mean,
I think the injury here was inevitable either way.
No.
I think it's safe to. I think it's safe to.
Man is going to do more damage than the 130-pound female just casually walking.
Hey, watch it.
We're throwing weights around.
Well, I mean, 250 is a lot more than it's almost double.
I think.
Have you like I just think it's pretty wild to throw weight around. I don't know if you even know what Kinney's girlfriend looks like.
Female, has hair. I'd like to say human. Besides that, not much more of a description. Have not met her, but seems nice.
I think we're checking off the boxes there.
Yeah.
I think safe to say I think Juju would have been late for dinner if that happened. So his food would have been cold and he probably would have been disappointed. So
and then he would not have went up for that ball and he wouldn't have broken his shoulder. I'm just saying universe works in mysterious ways. Butterfly effect.
130. Anyway. I was going to have one of us dance to a Juju TikTok. I'm not going to have that happen anymore. I made the executive decision to put that on the table and then quickly take it off. So, being a Steelers fan, obviously lost. I don't know if you can say the pride of the franchise, but their franchise quarterback, Big Ben, a lot of turnover. You got Mitch Trubisky. You got Kenny Pickett in there. Will they be bad? I had two questions written for the Steelers before we get into the heavy, very insightful fantasy talk that we will hit later in the show. Will they be bad? And have you ever stole anything? Yeah, because they're the Steelers. I think we can answer the first question right away. They're not going to be good.
No. I mean, they're not going to. They're going to have a hard time, getting to even the wild card this year. I think it's going to be a lot of low scoring, defense heavy games. We'll see what happens with the quarterback room. There's been a lot of talks early in training camp. Seems like every QB in the room still has a chance. With Trubisky being the favorite right now for week 1. Chase Staples says Mason Rudolph is on the even playing field with them. I disagree. Kondo, I know how you feel about Mason Rudolph.
I have no reason to dislike him as strongly as I do. Actually, he went to Oklahoma State.
He's a Cowboy.
Hook him. So that's plenty of reason. Yeah, I hate his guts. There's not really much beyond that, but yeah, I'm not a fan of him.
Yeah.
Cody, I feel like you would have a lot to say about this quarterback situation. Oh, actually, I don't care what you think about this quarterback conversation. Cody, have you ever stole anything?
Have I ever stolen anything? I mean, this one time I stole a wine bottle, but it was in the garbage, so it's not like technically stealing. But I guess I stole it from hobos who would otherwise be using it.
Is hobo an outdated term? I feel like I haven't heard the word hobo in a long time.
Well, I think some people call them homeless, but I mean technically anything could be a home. I mean, cars are homes, boxes. A house is just a box that happens to have paint on the inside. And
Okay, I think we can cut
Yeah.
off the conversation there. I think that's the perfect place to leave that. Yeah,
I'll talk about hobos all day.
I
Don't get me onto the hobo conversation.
that's an episode for another time. I've never stole anything myself.
Mhm.
Virginity was stolen once. Am looking for that if anyone can find it. Let's get into the fantasy talk. We're gonna kick it right off with some over-unders. Over-under.
ADP.
ADP.
Average draft position for those new people out here.
Would you take this person over or under their ADP? Where do you think they should be going? Do you think they're over or underrated for where they're going in drafts right now, which is early August? A lot is going to change. Kick it off with, I think, one of my favorite quarterbacks, one of Cody's favorite
Running backs.
other positions. Lamar Jackson coming back into the year, big contract year. He is currently going 53.5 on average overall, and he is the QB4 behind Justin Herbert. I'm doing this off the top of my head, even though I look to the side. I have running backs up right now. Justin Herbert,
Josh Allen, Patty
Mahomes. I got that. Would you guys take him over or under this price tag? Or do you think that he's right where he should be?
I like him as the fourth, either the third or fourth quarterback off the list here. That's where I kind of have him. 53rd is that late fourth, early fifth round. I'm fine with that. You got a couple good. It depends on how highly you think of like some of the other quarterbacks behind him, and also who's on the board, kind of how the draft's going. If people are making a quarterback push or you think they're about to make one, it's always good to try to snag and grab someone before they do. So I'm for it. I also did pick up Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, I believe, in the second and third round, the first year I played fantasy football. So I'm a little bullish on quarterbacks.
Got to stock up.
True.
Pretty sure that you did. I think Aaron Rodgers was hurt for most of the season.
Yep.
It was a smart move. Yeah.
It's a good investment. Got Tom Brady.
So, yeah, I think for me, I'm probably going over. Me personally, I think I'm taking a different draft approach this year.
When we should clarify this. When we say over, do we mean higher number, as in they will go later
54.
in the higher number than 54?
Yeah, 54.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're gonna go later.
Yep. Yeah, so kind of reverse psychology there. But I think me personally, I think I would draft Lamar Jackson at a later ranking or position, I guess. I think running backs, wide receivers, I think you need that depth more in the earlier rounds, kind of not worrying about filling other positions. I think it's just important to build that stock on your fantasy roster rather than just going after a quarterback. Now again, if he's falling ADP, I'm not going to pass up on him, I don't think. But I'm prioritizing a running back, wide receiver over a quarterback at this current ADP.
Yeah.
So Kinney, you're saying are you saying you're gonna hold off you're gonna be building depth at the running back, wide receiver position before you're going after a quarterback? Like he'd have to kind of fall, same with some other quarterbacks before you're kind of looking at quarterback, or how are you describing how are you describing it?
Well, I think there's kind of two different questions on the board here. I think you're asking one about my approach with drafting players, and and we're also talking about Lamar Jackson here. So I think at his current ADP, I think he's going to be over his current ADP come a week before the season starts.
Right.
Just because I think there's a lot of players that, we may have sprinkled on in the previous episodes, Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, and depending on like what drafting platform you're on, those players could appear before Lamar Jackson in the draft. So I think rankings are subject to change, and I think Lamar Jackson's going to fall.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Kinney as far as the approach goes, where I like to find that value quarterback rather than take one high.
Mhm.
It's just a different philosophy than the way that I normally go.
Yeah.
I also think I'm gonna say he's going to go later, which would be over. For me, for two reasons. Because of that, and also because I don't think he's my QB4. Like, do you look at the weapons? I like Lamar. I don't like a knock on Lamar. I think it's more Kyler is going pretty low. He's going 5, so he's not going that low. I have Kyler and Brady ahead of him.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Nice.
Brady, I look for consistency out of the quarterback position. I think we talked about this last year with Lamar. So he played 12 games. He had 20 plus points in 4 of them. Okay. He had 30 plus in, I think it's 3 of those.
Didn't have a great season last year.
3 of the 4, he had 30 plus. So he was pretty like up and down. I want to have more consistency from that quarterback position week to week. I think Lamar is going to be more of a boom bust option because what do they do in the offseason, or where did things change in the offseason? Well, they got rid of Hollywood and they're getting Dobbins back. They're getting Gus Edwards back. So you're losing in the receiving core. You're gaining in the running room. I think that kind of opens up for not necessarily worse, but more of the same. And I would rather go with Kyler, who I know is going to chuck it around and has, for everything, been like a pretty awesome fantasy quarterback. And Brady, who had some dips at the end of last year, but I think is going to be a more consistent option.
I'm with you.
Moving into another Raven. This is really mostly Ravens here. We're going to go Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews is probably one of the biggest surges from last year to this year. Tight end 2 going at 26.8. I remember in our offseason mock, either it was offseason or the end of last season, I think Toady took him either in the first round or the second round.
It was very, very early.
Yeah. So do you still hold that high of an opinion on Mark Andrews?
Yeah. I love Mark Andrews this year. I think for me, my tight end 1 tier is Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, period. Those 2 guys are going to be leaps and bounds above the other guys in terms of how good tight ends are. Because both of them no longer have their number 1 left. But they still have their quarterback. I mean, they have, I think the repertoire that Mark Andrews and Lamar have really got highlighted at the end of last year for the fantasy football playoffs. I mean, Mark Andrews was otherworldly. He was tearing it up. And I think now that Hollywood's gone, Gus the Bus might not be ready for week 1. I think Mark Andrews is just going to have, I don't think it's crazy to say he's going to have at least 10 targets a game. It's going to be a great year for Mark Andrews. I love him. I'm taking Mark Andrews in the 3rd. If I can get him in the 3rd, I'm taking him.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think the opportunity is for him. Like, I think you talked about on Monday, if you have the 1-1, you have the chance to leave with
the best at 3 positions.
The best at running back, the best at quarterback, and the best at tight end. And I would probably rather have the best at tight end than quarterback if I had to make that choice. Maybe go running back, wide receiver, tight end. If you feel ambitious enough to go running back, quarterback, tight end,
All hats to you.
all for it. Yeah. Tip my hat. I can't do it right now. There's a lot going on up here. But yeah, I mean, Mark Andrews is kind of going, this is crazy, kind of going where Darren Waller was last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's justifiable.
Can we take a second just to like think about that? That's nuts. That Darren Waller's good and everything. Like, he's very good.
Mhm.
But Mark Andrews had an unbelievable year last year, and they lost receiving weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And he is going early third round.
Yep.
That's
It's unreal,
crazy.
right? Yeah. I mean, I think depending on what league you're in, I think in a normal league, he's going to drop to the third round. I honestly think in smarter leagues where people are a little bit more fantasy football, like they have a little bit more like sense for fantasy football, I think he's honestly going to be going in the second. Because if you're picking middle of the second, you know he's not going to make it to like the 3-6 spot. You know he's not going to make it there. So I want to know if you guys are considering him at like, if you're picking 2-6, you picking him? 2-7, you taking him?
I think
it'd be because like besides those guys, I mean, you got a new connection with Darren Waller now having to fight more people for targets. Hunter Renfrow emerged. You got Davante Adams. I mean, Davante Adams demands a huge target share. So Darren Waller has to get dropped down.
For sure.
George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson are not, they weren't what they were hyped up to be. There's a bunch of inconsistencies the farther you go down the tight end spectrum here. So to me, I think in some more like aggressive fantasy leagues here, I think to me, I'm taking him under. I think he might be going at a 2-6, a 2-7, 2-5, like something kind of crazy. Because if you're looking down later in the thing, you can find makeshift wide receivers. You can't find makeshift tight ends that are going to produce as highly. I mean, you can get a Tyler Lockett super deep into the league or into the draft here, and Tyler Lockett could have boom or bust weeks where he's a top 10 guy. Whereas not a lot of tight ends are going to be producing how these two guys are going to be producing.
It's the stigma, man. Like, that's what it is. It's the stigma of taking a tight end early and feeling like you're behind the 8 ball. Yeah. And do I think that Mark Andrews is probably should have value around 2-6 and 2-7? Yeah. But I don't want to take a tight end that early. That seems crazy. That's the only reason. Is he worth it? Yes. Mm-hmm. Am I still too afraid to do it? Yes. That's my issue with it. And it's crazy. I feel like it's just like a built up thing from playing fantasy where you're like, oh, I shouldn't take a tight end early. I shouldn't take a tight end early.
It's the stigma behind it. I'm with you.
But there's I think even more than quarterback, which we just talked about, that's a position where things die down. Like, there's a very few guarantees in fantasy football. And I have a couple guys that I like to take a shot on in like the middle rounds, but nobody's going to be the guarantee that Mark Andrews is, besides Kelsey, who's going in the first round to be the number one guy on their offense. Right. Maybe Kyle Pitts, but that's a very different offense.
Exactly. That's just what I'm thinking. Like, if you're going that late around Kyle Pitts territory, you're getting a Jalen Waddle, a Zeke, a Scary Terry, a Michael Pittman, a Waller, a Josh Jacobs, a Diontae Johnson, a Breece Hall. I mean, those names those are good like second options, but I don't think like the Darren Waller doesn't appeal to me as much with the addition of Devontae Adams. So I think like Mark Andrews has to be drafted under the 26th, 27th pick in the draft. I just don't think he should be making it out of the second or at least the early first or early third. If you have like the 3-1, the 3-2, something like that, I don't think he should be escaping past there. But it also depends on like how well you know your tight ends, and if you know like if you're gonna pick and choose like what weeks people are gonna go off for.
I think for me, I'm going under on Mark Andrews. Last year he finished as the tight end one, and it really like wasn't close. I think the Chiefs are going to be subject to some, negative regression this year in terms of efficiency, and I just think, the reports are saying Lamar is getting better, and Mark Andrews certainly hasn't gotten worse. Hollywood Brown did catch a lot of balls last year for them, and those opportunities have to go somewhere. The wide receiver core for Baltimore is not, it's not there. It's just Rashod, Bateman, and I don't even know who else is there. Duvernay, Prochet.
Yep.
But like, I'm taking the opportunity there with Mark Andrews, and I'm certainly not reaching for Kelsey. I would reach for Andrews. If I have the 211 and, you get guys like, Mark Andrews, Fournette, I don't even know who else would be there. Keenan Allen.
The 211 is what, like 23rd, 22nd?
Yeah, 20. It would be 23rd. Yeah, I'm taking Mark Andrews. I can't risk that turn because he would go there. So
exactly
taking the under there.
What about, this is my one person that I'm going to throw at you here.
Sure.
Aaron Jones or Mark Andrews?
I mean, interesting. I mean, just it really depends on like the position in the draft that I'm drafting in. But I think pure floor, I think I'm taking Mark Andrews there.
Also, I think ESPN users, they may be on crack, which is they should. We're fully supportive in them seeking help.
Absolutely.
Nick Chubb is RB 14. We'll talk more about Nick Chubb, but Nick Chubb is going behind James Conner. Would you rather have Nick Chubb? Would you rather have Nick Chubb or Mark Andrews? Because you can get Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is going earlier than Nick Chubb, which is, I think, a little steep, but
that's tough.
That's very close. Again, kind of have to see how the draft board looks. But probably Chubb in that position. I just think running backs, if you can get two consistent like running back ones out the gun, you can kind of afford to get, a Pitts, Dalton Schultz kind of tight end.
Yeah. You can go with a lower tier guy.
I think it's easier to start with, two guaranteed running backs out the gun rather than having one running back, a really good tight end, and then trying to have to kind of make your ground up from there.
100% with Kinney.
Let's go into the backfields. J.K. Dobbins is going as the RB21 at round pick 50. J.K. Dobbins is an interesting player just in general this year. He's going behind guys like Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs. He's going ahead of guys like Antonio Gibson, Elijah Mitchell, Miles Sanders. He's just in a weird territory where we don't really know what his status is for week one. It looks promising that he's going to play, kind of, maybe. I don't know. He's limited in on-field workouts. He isn't on the PUP. I don't know. with J.K. Dobbins. It's a very just weird territory for me.
Yeah. Oh, Ripken.
I think for me, I'm probably going over on J.K. Dobbins here. I don't think he's running back 21. I mean, like you mentioned, I think Elijah Mitchell is probably above J.K. Dobbins. Antonio Gibson's a stretch, just because there is durability concerns for both players. Antonio Gibson's a fruit for discussion for the NFC East debate. But like I'm looking at like my current rankings, and I have guys, you know, like Josh Jacobs over J.K. Dobbins. I have ETN like right beneath. And he's, AJ Dillon is kind of right there too. So I listen, we're talking running back rankings, we're talking ADP. I think J.K. Dobbins, you gotta go over here.
Give me the under on J.K. Dobbins. I'm more bullish on him. He's in my tier 3 list in terms of my rankings for it.
Wow.
I mean, I shit on Lamar because Lamar runs more than half the running backs in the league do. But they do run the option, like, quite often. Either intentional or not, Lamar will pull the ball out. So I assume it's an intentional option play. But he gives it to him. Gus Bus, I think, is going to be a little banged up going into the season. He's not even 100% sure if he's going to start week 1 or not play week 1. Give me J.K. Dobbins. Give me a starting running back. I think he's going to be an RB2. I mean, I think at this point in the draft, you already have an RB1. You probably have your flex at this point. I think you're fine. I mean, I think I can draft smart enough. I think a lot of other people can draft smart enough to compensate in case J.K. Dobbins, misses the first week or two, where it's not going to be detrimental to the season. I think if you're picking at the 1-1 and then you're picking at the 2-12 and the 3-1, you can get the number one guy, number one running back, number one tight end, number one quarterback, and that's going to make up for a J.K. Dobbins. But you ain't got to you're not going to have to take a flyer or like a risky play on a backup at that point. You can get the starter. So to me, I like it. But I mean, you guys are making valid points about the over. I mean,
I haven't even talked yet.
You said you were over, I thought.
No, I said it's very confusing. I'm actually going to put him. I think we're going to have 3 different answers because I think it's around where he should go. Like, I have him as my running back. What is it, 23? But I get it. Like, if you think the upside is higher with him, then so the 2 guys that I would flip, my 21 is Josh Jacobs. If you want to say J.K. Dobbins has more upside than Josh Jacobs, I could 100% buy into that. If you want to say he has more upside than Antonio Gibson, I can 100% buy into that. That's I kind of say that he's in the same grouping as like Jacobs, Gibson, Miles Sanders, Dobbins, CEH, and whichever one of those guys you want to put as like the top guy, I think is fine. I think they're all kind of like in a cluster that I would say is like their own tier. So like, and I think that fits around this 20 to 24 range. So I can't really complain too much about J.K. Dobbins' ADP. I have a feeling, this is just a little bit of a hunch, that he's going to end up going later as people get more worried about whether he's going to play week 1. Depends on how the health goes, and we have a lot of time to figure that out and how the reports look and all that stuff. So J.K. Dobbins might become more of a value as we get into fantasy draft season. But let's get into our fantasy face-offs. I always wished in boxing that they would do something other than a face-off. I heard this discussion with Jake Paul. I was watching like an interview, getting ready for his fight. Very excited for that. Big Pauler. He brought up that for the Tyron Woodley fight, they were doing a face-to-face. He wished they could have done butt-to-butt. But we don't have that for the fantasy
We don't.
players. We have face-offs because it F for fantasy, F for face-offs. We could do fantasy fanny-offs.
We could. That'd be, I think the tight ends would win because they're not wide out. Jokes.
I don't get it. Anyway, T. Higgins, Diontae Johnson. Speaking of wideouts, two guys that are going as, I would say, back-end wide receiver ones or early wide receiver twos. Two very different offenses for expectation. Also, you could say two different style of wide receivers. I don't know that it's too big of a stretch to compare them. Which one are you going into the season with a higher expectation for?
T. Higgs. They lost Uzma. They lost him. He's gone. You gotta make up the production somewhere. I mean, Uzma wasn't, the be all end all in terms of tight ends, but he made a contribution on the field. And I think people are more aware of Jamar Chase like now. So I think you're gonna have to pass the ball out. Diontae Johnson is going to have a much worse quarterback, no matter who it is, than Joe Shiesty. So that's just for me. I think better quarterback play, better opportunity. Give me T. Higgs.
I think for what we know now, I think I'm probably taking T. Higgins currently. And I think, and that sounds bad, I'm a Steelers fan, but I'm just looking at it from the fantasy standpoint. However, I think as training camp goes on, I think Diontae Johnson's ADP is going to drop to where he's much more affordable. And so for that reason, I could support, I swing both ways in this discussion.
And we respect that.
Yeah, we do. Hashtag Mad Dog. But I'm currently taking T. Higgins at his current ADP. I don't know what it is currently off the top of my head.
T. Higgins is going around like 11th
Higgins is wide receiver. Yeah, wide receiver 11.
32nd pick. Diontae Johnson is going wide receiver 17, 49th off the board.
Yeah. I mean, this is more if you're on the clock and you're going to take one of these guys, but like you're between these two guys, who are you going to go with? And it seems like you guys are both leaning T. Higgins in that debate. Maybe with the ADP baked in is a different discussion. I think I'm taking Diontae Johnson regardless. Okay. I have Diontae Johnson. Now I have Diontae Johnson, wide receiver 12. T. Higgins, wide receiver 14, both in the same tier for me. So kind of where this question derives also, because I think that it's a conversation to be had as far as like pick your poison. I think you'll be fine with either of these guys. I think I value safety and floor more with my wide receivers than probably any position in a weird way, like especially with my starters. I'll say an unpopular opinion. I have Jamar Chase as my wide receiver 6. He is not going at wide receiver 6, and he might probably finish higher than that. But I have more faith in guys like Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Debo to get more of a target share or to get more targets throughout the season and be those like 100+ catch guys that are targeted 140 times, where I don't know if Jamar Chase is that, just because of the way he plays and how many weapons they have. Now, Jamar Chase is going to be awesome. He's still my wide receiver 6. But I think he's going to be more of an upside play. That will probably prove me wrong. I just like the safety of having a guy that is going to catch 8 balls a game and going to give you your solid floor, and you just don't have to worry about that ever. You don't have to worry about inconsistency, and I think Diontae Johnson is like the face of consistency in fantasy football and has been for a long time. I get the quarterback switch. I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal just because it's not like the position's getting worse, especially where Ben has been late in the last couple of years. So I think if you say T. Higgins, I'm not going to go wild, but I would probably go Diontae Johnson for my style, and that's where I'm leaning right now.
Fair.
Good talk.
This is one that is interesting because these guys, ADP-wise, are not close. I think Amari Cooper is going as the wide receiver 27, which is farther than I thought. Rashod Bateman is going as the wide receiver 38. But if you're on the clock picking between these two guys, who would you choose?
I think Rashod Bateman. I mean, they lost Marquise Brown. Lamar is going to have to throw the ball at some point this year to someone besides Mark Andrews. So, yeah, give me Rashod Bateman.
I think I'm going Amari Cooper in this situation. Just given, this is kind of the same conversation with T. Higgins and Diontae Johnson. I think, whatever happens with the Cleveland quarterback situation, I still think Amari Cooper comes out on top in this discussion just because he is the established wide receiver 1, and he seems to have good rapport with both quarterbacks in camp so far. And I just think he'll be more of the featured option. I mean, like you said, Rashod Bateman does have to compete with Mark Andrews, I think. And I think there's really the drop off is greater with Amari Cooper, and who else is going to catch balls consistently? I don't think
Dearness Johnson, Nick Chubb.
Is Dearness Johnson getting action with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb healthy? Who knows? We'll see.
They have other wide receivers now. They could throw him out there. I'm just saying. He's an athlete.
Amari Cooper locked me in.
And this is before Odell goes back to Cleveland also.
Oh, my God. I hope not.
I'm going to go Amari Cooper. I don't think it's I think this is a pretty, I would say bleak because there is opportunity with either of these guys. I think Jacoby Brissett's just capable enough to keep Amari Cooper afloat. And who else is going to catch the ball? Like Kinney said, you can make that same argument for Baltimore and Rashod Bateman. But I think Amari Cooper has to have something. He's good enough to give you an okay year. And that's kind of where you're drafting him too. You're drafting him as a wide receiver 3 for your team. So I'm going to go Amari Cooper. This is probably going to be a big debate. I'm interested to see how long this discussion goes. It's the RB1 conversation of the AFC North. We got Najee, we got Joe Mixon, we got Nick Chubb. Apparently not all RB1s because Nick Chubb is going as the RB14 right now, which still is crazy to me. Out of these guys, how are you ranking the 3? I can start off if we need.
Yeah.
Sure.
Probably not great for me to say after I've complained about Nick Chubb being low for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have Joe Mixon as my RB7, Najee as my RB8, and Nick Chubb as my RB10. Still ahead of 14. And many people, I think Saquon might have been going ahead of him on ESPN, which is no, Saquon wasn't. James Conner was, which is
crazy.
No.
That's astronomical.
No.
Again, ESPN will support you in your desire for help, but
don't do crack.
No crystals.
Yeah. So
Chris Kringle.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just the offense, right? Like it's the offenses that they're in, the opportunity for touchdowns. And I think that's a little bit of receiving work. I hear they want to use Joe Mixon a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm similar to you, Kondo. I got Najee Harris as my running back 6. He's the end of my tier 1. And Joe Mixon started my tier 2 with 7. And Nick Chubb is 9. I mean, all these guys are top 10. Nick Chubb, I think, is dropping. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a draft strategy. If people start picking up random people way lower down, Nick Chubb drops. He's not on the board, as often. It's a good draft strategy if you get enough people in on it. So I'm kind of with you. Very similar.
I think people just get worried with Kareem Hunt there. But you also see from the last 2 years, number one, I've heard some rumblings, I don't know how credible they are, that they might not have Kareem Hunt by the end of the preseason because they re-signed Dearness Johnson and may want to get him more involved. But you've seen that both of them can be productive, and like Kareem Hunt's better numbers have come when Nick Chubb is there. And Nick Chubb hasn't really dropped off or made like too big of a difference.
Right.
Whether or not Kareem Hunt is there or not. So like, I get it, but at the same time, the numbers kind of make a different argument than you would expect.
True.
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be Mixon, Najee, and then Chubb. I mean, depends on what, which type of fantasy league you're in. But Najee and Joe Mixon are guaranteed passing work. Whereas Nick Chubb, it's kind of, volatile depending on the game flow, what down it is, especially, given the quarterback situation. We have to see what happens. But it's close. I've seen like in mock drafts that Najee goes a couple spots before Mixon. So I mean, just depending on the draft board, if you have like the 111 or the 110 and Mixon is there, I'm taking him, and chances are Chubb is also there on the turnaround. And I would be very content with both of those guys being my starting running backs. So
yeah, I mean, if you can make it out of your drafts with
one or two of these guys, I mean, I think you're set for. There's a world that you could draft a Najee and then a Nick Chubb. I mean, you could have those two guys if you're picking late in the first round or mid first round.
There's a world, and that is drafting on ESPN while everyone else is smoking crack, in which you could possibly get all three of these guys based on ADP. So Najee is going at pick 9. If he falls like to 10 or 11, okay. Like, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Joe Mixon's going at 14. And then, okay, you're probably not going to get Nick Chubb, but he is going in the 3rd round. He's going early in the 3rd round.
Right.
So that's too close. Let's clean up our acts. Again, we are willing to be a resource if need be. I don't know how we would help in that regard whatsoever. We are by no means crack experts. I don't think.
We don't even have an LLC.
True. No crack without an LLC. It's the law.
Do we have time for one follow-up to this debate?
Sure.
Send it.
I think you. Well, I don't know if you could have all three of these
There's a
running
road.
backs.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but
Yeah.
who knows in those leagues?
However, though, based on Najee's current ADP,
Mhm.
you could, unquote, trade down if you wanted to get Nick Chubb and a receiver with serious potential. In this situation, just because I think Najee's opportunity appears greater than Nick Chubb. I mean, you said it before. People are worried about Kareem Hunt in that offense, whereas like Najee has basically no competition.
True.
So I would entertain that option if it became available to me.
Okay, so this is the question I have for you then. Would you rather have Nick Chubb and Devontae Adams or Najee and Keenan Allen?
Chubb and Diontae.
I agree.
Give me Najee.
Okay. This year's a different year for me, for sure. I feel like running back has a lot more depth than the last few years, and wide receiver is a little bit more up in the air. I've never seen a fantasy football season kind of like that.
True.
So it's all part of the fun. Not fun to talk about. That's probably the worst transition I could have done for this. I think before we leave, we got to talk a little bit about the Deshaun Watson thing and the fantasy relevance of it. Like, I think it's crazy that he could play this year, but we should have an answer for that next week, and that might be a little bit more better of a time to talk about it. I think for now, I would just have the expectation that Jacoby Brissett's gonna kind of be the guy, and that might be more so baked into these ADPs of the Cleveland players. Like we said, I think Amari Cooper was going to wide receiver 27. I think I had him a little bit higher than that. And obviously Nick Chubb going a little bit lower too. So
Right.
I don't think Jacoby Brissett really negatively impacts these guys that much. Like, I think, especially when Nick Chubb, it's a good thing, if anything. And I would say the same thing with Kareem Hunt. Amari Cooper, I think it just kind of stays closer to the same. I don't think it's that big of a hurdle. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I think it's going to hurt the Browns from a performance standpoint overall, but I think for fantasy, those three guys should stay pretty untouched. Obviously, more of an upside with Amari Cooper if Watson is to play.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agree.
Cool.
I think more power to the running backs. If anything, maybe they rise up 1 or 2 spots ADP.
Yeah.
But I think we're good.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
AFC
North.
West.
AFC North
South.
coming to a close. That is it for us today, and we will see you tomorrow, wrapping up the AFC with the AFC West.